To keep up to date with our latest videos, please hit the subscribe button below. Hi there, welcome to this video from racingbetdata.com. Today in the video we're going to be looking at the pre-race download file, what it entails, what it's about and what you can get from it. So first of all, we're on the home page. I'm going to show you how you can find and navigate to this file if you're not already familiar. Two ways. First of all, scroll down on the home page and you'll be able to see, so if you come direct to our home page, you can get a direct link to download today's pre-race download file. So it shows you there the date of the latest file. If you're not an advanced member yet, you can download and export a sample, which will give you a flavor of what the sheet contains, and as this video will as well. So either or, you can download that sample, have a play around with it if you've not used the sheet before. The remainder of this video will also take you through the columns and headers. The other way to obtain the sheet is through the main engine room of the site, which is the R data selection area here. So navigate to our data. The second option down is the pre-race download file, and clicking on that will take you to the landing page where we have some more worded description about the product itself, as well as being able to obtain it. So the other thing you'll notice is the archive files on the right hand side. So I'm going to come to those in a moment, but you'll have your account status across the top as you do on most of our pages. I'm logged in as an advanced member, so I have full access to everything I can need and want. Going back to the archive right hand side, so these files were created back in August 2020. That was their inception. And since then, there's been some evolvement, usually member requests for additional data, additional features to be displayed, and we've added those in. But we did find over time that there became a bit of resistance from a lot of other members, where we were adjusting the layout and the template of the file. So we did put an amnesty on this back in end of 2021, where we said unless the request was critical, or the new information was critical, or it had been requested multiple times, and usually the two are interlinked, we would not change the template and the layout of this file. So to keep track of those, we have the change log here, so you can see all of the changes that we made. And then the last one was September 2021. So since then, the file has remained in the same structure, the same layout, and the same headers, and that is the plan going forwards. Like I said, unless there is something critical, we will not be changing the structure of this file. So people who have templates, automation, those sort of things set up, that will be a real benefit for them, because it will remain as it is forever thus. But if you wanted to look at the changes, they're all detailed in that change log there. Archive files, as I said, if you've missed a day or you want to grab a couple of days worth of files, you can export those from the archive and review those. Now what we've done recently is we've fed data. So the data, first of all, so the data in this pre-race download file, the main bulk of the data on the left hand side is generated through our database, our data dashboard. The information is the same source, and then people were finding this standalone daily file really useful, and wanted to backtest. Now we've done videos in the past where we show you how you can export, if you don't already have them, multiple days worth of files, and then you can use Power Query to combine them. So Power Query is a useful Excel tool. If you don't already know or function within the tool, if you don't already know about it, have a look around on our YouTube channel, and obviously through search engines to ensure you're fully up to date with what Power Query can do. But what we've done now is feed in an additional 17 columns to our data dashboard from the pre-race download file. So these are calculations made in the pre-race download file every day. People have found them useful, so we've now added those into the into the data dashboard, so you can export en masse, and you can do your analysis and your studying and your manipulation of data a lot easier and a lot quicker by exporting through the data dashboard. So coming on to the file itself, I'm just going to scroll down. You'll be able to see here the date of the file available. So this is updated every morning, as it says here, between 8 and 9. Usually it's between 8 and 9. Actually, to be honest, it's usually a lot earlier, but that's the target date for the upload. Target time for the upload is between 8 and 9 every morning. Today you can see it was uploaded at 7:48, and like I said, usually it's there before 8 a.m. Our data feed doesn't come into us till 7:15 in the morning, so it isn't physically possible to create this file any earlier than we do already. So that's the reason that's uploaded. And obviously, the further away from the race time you get, the data becomes more unreliable. There are horses that are non-runners, reserve horses come in that weren't obviously declared first thing in the morning. The going changes. So I think we've struck the balance right by getting the file with as much accurate data as we can as early as we can in the day. And like I said, that's available for you to download, and you can see when it's available there and on the home screen. You've got the option to download the sample. As I said, as a basic member, you can access that sample. I'm logged in as an advanced, so I can get the sample and the main download file. Once that daily file has been uploaded, it shouldn't change throughout the rest of the day. So as the day progresses, like I said about the going might change, but we don't go in and alter the file as the results come in and the day progresses. That file is frozen in time from that point in the morning. It remains there to be downloaded until the next day. So this one would then jump over into the archive section, and tomorrow's file follows in and replaces it. So like I said, there's no amendment after eventing or anything like that goes on with the file. It's created as a pre-race file and it remains as a pre-race file. So let's get into the file and click download and see what it has to offer. Okay, so depending on your PC, laptop download settings will depend whether the file opens straight up as it has for me, or whether you have to go to your download folder so you can change your settings, whether you want it to automatically open, etc. But once it's open, this is what you'll see. Well, this is today's file. Now the first thing to do is point out the number of tabs down the bottom. So what we have is a tab for each course for the day, and then we have a combined tab. So these formats and structures are the same, but what you'll see on the Wolverhampton tab are just the horses scheduled to run at Wolverhampton, and their full history. Same for Newmarket, Musselburgh, etc. And then the combined tab is pretty much self-explanatory and does what it says. It combines the whole history of all the horses due to run today, regardless of what track, and they're sorted alphabetically within this combined tab. There's a selections tab as well, which I will come on to afterwards. But first of all, we're going to get into the combined tab, which, like I said, explains all of the same headers that you'll see in these individual courses. Now, just be mindful as well, if there are a lot of courses in the day, or depending on your screen settings, you may need to use the left-right toggles to open up more tabs if you wanted to look at those specific courses only. So first thing I'm going to do is just open up these columns so we can see all the headers and talk you through what the content is. Now, a lot of this will be fairly obvious to most people, but obviously the video is here intended to cover every single nook and cranny within the file itself, to explain what everything means and what it's used for and how we derived and got it there. So this is an all-encompassing video, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So first of all is the date. So this is really obvious, the date of the race. We're looking at this top line here. So this horse, R4, it's its first race. So it only has one line. The horse further down, you can see Abnar. We're going to scroll all the way down. So that's the race today, line 53. It has 51 previous races. Or 50 previous races, 51 including today. So that's where there's variable length, because a horse has more history than another one. But the date column refers to that particular race on that line. The country that the horse is racing in, so either GB or Ireland. The track that it's racing at as well. The going. So as I've said, the going is for the upcoming races, the going as is first thing in the morning. Now that can change, but we do not go into this file and then amend the going based on what it was at the time of the race. But obviously weather conditions, races that happen prior to that one can all impact on the going, which will make it change. But the going for previous completed races will be as it was at post time for that particular race. So historic races have the going as it was. For upcoming races, it's the going as is in the morning, and that does not get altered in the file. But if you were to see this, so if this horse was to race again tomorrow, the going at Galway would reflect in tomorrow's file what it actually was for the race that's happening today. If that makes sense. Then we have the race type. So these are categorized. You can go into the data dashboard and see these. So we did sit down with about 4 or 5 members in 2019 to agree on the categorization of the race type and how we should band these accordingly. So that has been created, and it doesn't mean that anything before 2009 is catered for differently. We backfilled that entire data set back to 2002 to fall in line. I think it's about 26, 27 different types of race type that we categorize everything into. So you can see this top one's a maiden. The race distance. So this is specifically done, we don't include yards, it's done to the half furlong. The class of the race, so this is applicable to UK GB races only, so you can see that's why it's omitted from the top. There's no class rating for the Irish races. The class rating is 1 being the highest, so the best class of race, down to 6, 7, the lower class of races. So you can see here for Abnar, it's generally raced at lower class races in the UK. The post time, or the time of the race, in 24-hour clock format. The stall, if applicable, so if the horse is coming out of a stall, the stall number that it's scheduled or did come out of. Horse name, as I said before. And just to elaborate on the horse name, they will be in standard Betfair format. So you should be able to use this output and our data dashboard outputs to exactly match up to the listing on Betfair. So this is really useful for people. I've mentioned before, people use this file for automation. They can then link this straight into their automation bots, knowing that the horse name will match with the Betfair horsing naming convention. I know some put commas and exclamation marks and all sorts of abbreviated characters in there. We strip all of those out so they match 100% to the Betfair naming convention. The only exception to that is where we have what's called a dual active horse. So that might be a horse. So let's say Abnar. There may be 2 Abnars that run in the UK and Ireland at the same time. So to differentiate between these, so obviously if we had one Abnar, we don't want to see the other horse's history in here. We don't want the 2 being mixed up. So what we do is we differentiate by using a country of origin suffix at the end. So that would look something like this. And that denotes the difference between the 2 horses for checking its history, checking its any stats about the horse. That's the differentiator we use, rather than having 2 of the same name being used. And I have covered this before in another video, but I'm just going to show you very quickly a nice little way. If you wanted to remove that, so you wanted to do some automation, there's a nice little function in Excel called text before. I can spell text before. Where's your text? So the text is here. What's the delimiter? So this is the factor you want to look at, and we can put in a space and a open bracket because all of our suffixes are denoted by that. Okay. And that strips out the suffix. So you can convert that horse name to just its pure names where that exists. Now, if you wanted to use that for multiple horses, and not all of them, very few will have that suffix, I'm just going to show you what it will do for the line below. It'll give you an error. So what you can do here to combine it all in one formula is put equals if error. So if that's an error, which it is here, we put the value in, then we just want to show the horse name. And we can drag that up. So there you go. That's a very quick way to do that. Now the text before function, I'm in a newer version of Excel here. Older versions that I do have on some other machines, they do not have that functionality, but there's another way around it. You can get into the search engine. We've covered it on other videos, but you can use the left and right and substitute functions within Excel. There are many ways to do it, but this is by far the simplest if you have a newer up-to-date version of Excel. I'm just going to revert that back to Abnar. Okay, so the age, so that's the age of the horse at the time of the race. So you can see here, Abnar over the years has aged, so it's not the age it is now. For the race today, age 6, and these are all where he's ran this year, age 6, 5, 4, and you can see he didn't run in 2020, maybe COVID related, but age 2 where he started out. Now most horses will their birth clock will tick over on the 1st of January. For some horses, that's the 1st of July. Normally, that's related to Southern Hemisphere bred horses. So their birth, you might see that within the same calendar year, they have 2 different ages, and that'll be why. But generally, most horses clock over another year on the 1st of January each year. The pace rating. So pace is covered in more detail on our FAQ page, but just to give you a bit of an update on, or bit of information on what pace is, a horse is assigned a pace rating for that individual race. So you can see here why Abnar has changed based on that race, other horses in the race, the conditions, the distance, its past performance, etc. means that a different pace rating is assigned for every race. Now on the first race, pace rating is 0 because there's generally no information on that horse, so it can't be given a pace rating. Once a horse has had a race, the pace rating can be assigned to it. Now, the higher the rating normally denotes a horse that's, well, it does denote a horse that is expected to be a front runner. So if you find a horse that's 8, 9, or 10, the expected running style of that horse will be to be a front runner. It's not always the case. Other factors, jockey changes, for instance, or changes in the conditions, horses being withdrawn, all these factors can impact on the way that a horse does decide to run that race, or the horse itself. But these are an expected guide, and people do use these in conjunction with other matrices to determine how a horse will run, and that can then impact on their trading. So an 8, 9, 10 front runner expected, a 1, 2, 3 expected to be held up, and then anything in between is expected to sit sort of midfield during the course of the race itself. So that's what the pace rating is about. The weight, so that's the weight the horse carried or is expected to carry. And again, on our FAQ page, there's a bit more information that you can go into on the weight. Jockey name, trainer name. Don't think I need to do any more on those. SP favourite. So this is the industry SP. So 1 obviously being the favourite. So you can see here with Abnar, there's a couple of occasions where it has been the SP favourite. Where the horse on the day of the race, the horse, the SP isn't obviously known for that horse. So we use the predicted odds to determine the SP favourite, also known as the tissue price. So you can see our 4 at the top here is predicted to be the second favourite in the market, and same with the industry SP odds. Obviously for the day of the race, they're not known, which is why the Betfair SP is blank, but the industry SP before the race is populated with the tissue price predicted SP odds, and then after the race itself, we populate it with the actual industry SP odds. Okay. Betfair SP, just covered it really, but this is the starting price on the Betfair exchange. It's not known before the race, hence the blanks. The in-play minimum, so this is the lowest price that the horse traded down to, where a minimum of £100 or currency equivalent was matched. So this is where there's a reliability factor. The data dashboard and the pre-race download files with the in-play min-max and the pre-race in-play min-max as well, they're always displayed with a £100 minimum, because for back testing that gives you some degree of confidence that you would be matched at that level. Now with our results and odds standalone daily file, which is completely separate, that tracks the price movements in play as they happen, recording prices quicker than you can blink your eye, and that does not take into account the weight of money. So that's where you may see a disparity between the results and odds file, the lowest price traded. For instance, here with Abnar in its first race, you might have seen a 3.5 level, but it would have been because the values below 3.85 were all traded at less than £100. So it might have been £94, it might have been £1. But that, using those figures to then back test doesn't give you that reliability that you would have had a match. But what it does show you is the horse fluctuation, traded prices in play. That's why these files are standalone and kept separately. So same with the in-play max as well. This is where there's a minimum of £100 traded. The predicted SP, so I've sort of touched on this already, but this is where the tissue price is formed. So where the horse is due to run today, as in this example, these two will match exactly. And then in the future, when you see this horse R4 again, the actual industry SP will be known. So for this race in its history, the industry SP will change. The predicted SP will not change. That stays fixed. So you can do a comparison. You can see across to other horses. But obviously bear in mind the predicted industry SP and the tissue price, that's not going to know how many withdrawals the race is going to have, changing conditions potentially. So all of those factors can impact on the difference between the predicted industry SP and the actual. The place, so that's where the horse finished, and we do have an abbreviation guide table on the landing page that I was on just a moment ago. Obviously they're numeric unless there's something like a pulled up or fell, an unseated rider. So all of those abbreviations are on the landing page as well as on the data dashboard. The winning distance, so this is the distance in length between this horse and the winner. Okay, not the horse in front. That again is included in our results and odds file, but this is the distance between the horse and the horse that won. Where it's blank, that horse won the race, as you can see here. So there was no distance in between a horse in front of it because it was the leading horse. So this is the runners in the race. So declared runners for races that haven't yet taken place. The tick drop in running. Okay, so where I mentioned ticks on the Betfair exchange market, every price jump or incremation change is known as a tick. So where we have a tick drop in running of 41, this is the difference in ticks between the Betfair SP and the in-play minimum. So it dropped by 41 ticks from its starting price to the lowest it traded in play. Where there's, I'm just going to look for a blank in the hyphen, here we go. So where the horse won the race, the tick drop was the most it could be. So that's where this is blank. And what you'll see instead is the tick increase in running. So these are hyphenated where the horse generally would have traded out to 1,000, in most cases where it doesn't win. Some exceptions if the market got frozen, for instance, or it was a close finish, it would not trade that far out. But where the horse won the race, we look at the tick increase. Now you can see here that the actual increase was a minus figure. So that shows us that the Betfair starting price was 9.8, and actually the maximum price traded in play was 8. So the horse didn't trade above its starting place in play at all. Indicates a really good start and went on to lead and win that race, I would say, looking at those figures. A bit further down, you can see that the horse did win the race, denoted by position 1, but the in-play maximum went up to 6 from its starting price of 4.2. So that's where the 18 ticks difference are, and the tick drops are the reduction, the tick increases, obviously the increases for where a horse won the race. So the percentage of the SP drop, okay, so this one, a little bit more information on this because there are a couple of different ways, if you like, to calculate this percentage drop. But there's one major flaw with one of the standard ways that people would think an SP is calculated. So let's take this row that I'm on, for instance. I'm going to highlight that. And the SP was 20. Now, if the lowest that horse traded down to was 10, people would say, well, that's a 50% reduction. But it's not, because the way the decimal odds work, that one that is your stake is carried into there. So the formula needs to be done a little bit differently. I'm just going to unhide that, uncolour that cell, because that's not a great example because the horse's odds didn't drop. I'm going to find one that did. So we've got one here and highlight this one instead. So the horse's SP was 8.47. Its in-play minimum was 7. Now the calculation to work out the percentage drop is the Betfair starting price minus the in-play low. So that'd be 8.47 minus 7. And then you divide that by the 8.47 minus 1 to take away that stake. So you would do 8.47 minus 7 to give about 1.47. And then you divide that by 8.47 minus 1, so 7.47. And then you multiply that by 100 to get your percentage SP drop. And that is the correct and accurate way, or it's the way we do it anyway, because like I said, if it's flawed, if the SP is below even. So if a horse started at 1.8, what would be 50% of 1.8? Well, it would be 0.9, but there are no odds increments below 1.01, so it doesn't work. That's used for dobbing, and we'll come on to dobbing as we move further across to the right of the sheet. But that is the calculation that we use to generate the SP drop, and the increase is the same. So it's the same methodology. We're going to go to this one. So the starting price was 4.21 or 4.22. It went up to 6 in running. So you would use the in-play minimum, in-play maximum, which is 6, minus the Betfair SP, which is 4.22, and then you would do 6 minus, divide it by 6 minus 1, and that gives you your increase of 35.6%. Okay, so that's how those two columns are calculated. Runs in the last 18 months. So this changes per line. So you'll see generally these will increase, but you could, if I find Abnar for today, I'm just going to highlight that one and move over. So you can see here that it had 31 runs in the last 18 months in its previous race, but it's gone down to 26. Well, that's because there's been a gap of 2 months between, or just under 2 months between the last two races. So every recording in this column is based on the date of that race. So as of the 13th of the 6th, 18 months prior to that, the horse had 31 runs. As of the 4th of 8th, which is today, it's had 26. So that's why those figures change and don't always increase as an incremental 1 each time. It's looking at those individual races and seeing how many runs it's had in the last 18 months. Last time out, so these 5 columns are going to group together because these are the same as the SP drop here, which looks at the individual race. This records the last 5. So you'll see here, the 90.8 refers to here, the 16.7, the 75, minus 15.8, and the 63. So for this row, we're looking at essentially those 5 last 5 races transposed out to give you a figure across here of the last 5, a picture of the last 5. And I've highlighted that here, which shows the average of 46.08, which you then have in column AO. So I've jumped over a little bit, but the average is also of the last 5 is surmised in this one column. Next to that, you have the last 18 months drop. Now on that line, it's identical because because the horse didn't run in 2020, so the last 5 matched with the last 18 months in this instance. Doesn't always, because you can see here the differences as we go down as the horse races more in a shorter period of time. Now the last time out in play low for the 5 races go 4, 3, 2, and its last rate pretty self-explanatory, as are the wins in the last 5. So it's the last 5 races prior to this one that it's won. Covered these 2 already. The RBD rating. So this is a really popular function that we offer in our outputs. Now this is a unique rating that we give to a horse every time it races. Now you'll notice the first thing you might notice is there's no backfill. So it's only displayed in this file for the day of the race. But like I've said already, we have backfilled our data dashboard with over 2 years worth, as we stand now, 2 years worth of data, which means you can retrieve the previous horse ratings and ranks from our data dashboard. Because I know people were doing that by combining multiple archive files and using Power Query and the like. But we've made that so much easier now by having those in our outputs, so you'll be able to look at a horse's rating and rank history and how it performed. But getting back to the rating and how it's calculated, I'm not going to give the full recipe away, if you like, but we use weighting factors on here based on the recent performance of the horse, specifically over the last 18 months. We're looking at its performance at the course that it's running at, the distance that it's running at, whether it's been a beaten favourite, and other such weighting factors are all applied into the pot that generate this rating. So the higher the rating, the better the horse. And then the horse is given a rank based on its rating figure in the race that it's in. So if we go back to Abnar, it's running in the 5:25 at Wolverhampton. It happens to be the 6th or maybe joint 6th best rated horse in that race. Previous races, so this is an incremental and it goes up one by one. So this is the horse running today. It's his 51st race. It's had 50 prior. Days since its last time out. So again, it's all relating to that line. So today it's racing for the first time in 52 days. The previous race, it had a gap of 35 days. And then some of these, it was raced more than once a week. Course winner. So yes, no, it's Boolean here. Has it won at this course that it's running at today? Yes, it has. Distance winner. Now, just to cover on distance, what we do is we round down to the nearest furlong when we consider a distance winner. So in this instance, we're saying the horse has won at 1.5 miles, but that can also account for races at 1 mile as well. Because these are all rounded, we round to the nearest full furlong. So that's where the yes will display. Now there was, I think some of the earlier sheets had some formula issues on that, so those might display slightly incorrectly, but I can assure you that the data dashboard, when you're looking at a distance winner, those are completely correct. So those will work based on the horse rounded to the nearest furlong, whether it's won at that distance or not. Class difference since last time out. So this shows, obviously not applicable for Irish racing, but the class we spoke about here. So the horse has actually dropped down a class since its previous race from class 5 to class 6. The official rating difference since last time out. So the horse has an official rating assigned to it, and that shows the difference between this one and the previous race. These are counts of the course, distance, class, and going wins that the horse has had. We do a distance in furlongs conversion here, so there's 8 furlongs in a mile, and again that's rounded to the nearest furlong. Whether it's up in trip, so is the horse running at a longer distance than its previous race? So you can see here where there's a yes, it ran at 7 furlong and then it went to a mile. So that's where there's a yes, but these last few it's remained at a mile or 1.5 miles as it's running at today, but we're rounding to the nearest furlong. That's up in trip, the weight, so that's the conversion of the stones and pounds carried into being carried by the horse into pounds. The weight difference since the last time out, so that's the change in weight. So last race carried 130 pounds, today it's declared carry weight is 144, so it's gone up 14 pounds. And then we have the tear weight. So the tear weight is simply the OR difference. So this column here added to the weight difference, which gives you the 11. That is what tear weight is. That was requested by one of our long-standing members. Uses it for handicapping purposes. Race rating, again for handicap races, the rating of the horses in the race. Dob percentage. So we did touch on Dob earlier, so I'm going to speak a little bit more about Dob. Now Dob works where a horse has a SP, and this is Betfair SP, of greater than 2, greater than evens, because Dob is double or bust. So we're looking for where horses' odds drop by 50%, a pure 50%. So if they start at a BSP of 10 and they drop below 5, which is half, that, or 5 or lower, that counts as a successful Dob. Yes. If it didn't trade to 5 or below, it's a failed Dob and would be a bust, and that would be a no. So that comes back to if a horse's odds are 1.8, half of that is 0.9. Doesn't work for a Dob. So that's where Dobs are excluded. I'm just going to see if I can find an instance where Abnar ran at BSP of less than 2. Can't see that he did as an odds on. Let's scroll a little bit further down. Let's highlight Agagio here, and let's look at the Dob for this one. So you will see that that didn't change, because that would just be excluded, that race there that's highlighted in blue, because you can't do a Dob calculation for an odds-on favourite. So going back to the Dob, this is the history, so the horse, the percentage, which is ongoing. So you can see here for Abnar, the first race that it ran, I'm just going to highlight this one as being its first race. Put that one in gold and this one in silver. Just scroll over. So this is Abnar we're looking at. So for its first race, it didn't have a Dob percentage because it hadn't run before. For its second race, it had a Dob percentage of 100%. Now, the reason why it did that was because it had a Betfair SP of 9.5 and it dropped below half of that, which would be about 4.7 in its previous race. Now, in this race, Betfair SP was 5 and its in-play minimum was 5, so it didn't drop at all. So that's why here it drops to 50%. So it's saying of its previous races, 50% of the time it dobbed. So in this instance, 1 out of 2. Now you can see and track that as we go all the way down. So this is its current race today. You'll see it has a Dob percentage of 28%. So about 3 in 10 occasions it will dob. And if you placed a £1 dob on this horse for every race, the overall outcome would be that you're £22 down. So this horse is not a prolific or successful dobbing horse. But that is how the calculations are made, and you can look through here to find horses that are. But you do need to consider things like the class of the race, the distance, the number of runners. All of those will impact on a horse. So it's not, you can't just take things for face value. These are all indications and guides, but you should use those intrinsically with other factors when you're making any decision to trade or bet or place money on anything. You need to take that into account. The percentage of rivals beaten. Okay, so this calculation here is fairly simple. Let's use the top column for the example. So here we're saying it beat 62% of the horses in its first race. So it placed 5th, and there were where's runners? There it is. Sorry, missed it. There were 13 horses in the race. Okay, so it beat the horse that finished 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So it beat 8 runners out of the 13. And that's where you get your 62%. So the percentage of rivals beaten, this is an individual calculation for that race. Where it won, it would be 100%. And then we have a cumulative running total, PRB to date. So we scroll down to today. It's saying that this horse generally beats or has beaten 54% of its opponents in the races that it's running, and that does include horses that fell, pulled up, etc. in there. Last time out position, so that's fairly self-explanatory. Where did it finish in its last race? So the race we're looking at today, its last race, it finished 12th. Its official rating, the headgear. So there's a table of contents of headgear on the landing page, as well as on the data dashboard as well. There's a key indicator there that you can pop up to see the abbreviations, what they mean. And then we have today's race. So we can group. I'm going to show you the benefit of why we've added this one in. I'm going to go to data and filter, put a filter on here. So if we wanted to look at Wolverhampton, I'm going to look at this example, 4th of the 8th, at 17.25. It's the last one. If I highlight that, what that will do is filter by horses running today in this race, and it'll bring up their entire history. So if you did it the other way and you filtered by Wolverhampton 17.25, you'd only see those 1 lines for those horses, which you may want to see, but we've added that in because that will allow you to see the full history of every horse running in that particular race. Okay, so I think that has explained all of the columns and the headers and the data within them. The thing left to do is look at our selections tab. So I'm going to move to that here now. Now this brings up, and it might be quite powerful on the eyes to start with, but this brings up a series of slicers. Now slicers, if you're not familiar, they're basically filter controls for a pivot table. So this being our pivot table, these being our slicers and filter controls. Now if we've predetermined which filters are slicers filters are in here, but you can add more by clicking on the pivot table itself and then insert slicer. That's how you do it. I'm just going to pick one. Let's pick class. It's probably already in here. But that'll bring up a new filter control for you, which you can either delete some of these out and add that one in. But the way it works, if I click, I want to see horses that are running today that have had a class 4 race. Click on 4 and that should filter accordingly. Click on here and it unfilters. I'm going to delete that one. Just take it off. Oh, take it off. And I'm going to get back into the predetermined ones. But that's how you can add a slicer in. So what we've got here are all the horses due to run today, and you can filter on how they've ran in the past. So if we want to look at how horses that are running today have ran in the past when they've been up in trip, we select yes, and you can see here that would generate 2,971 past occurrences. There's 161 actually today. So from the deduction of those two, there's been 398 winners, which gives a strike rate of 14.16%. So it's saying horses that are running today, when they've run in the past and have been up in trip, has generated a Betfair profit to 1 unit of £1,000, an industry profit of £290, and a Betfair lay profit or loss in this instance of £1,239. So a very simple, quick filter that I've just picked at random. Horses that are running today that have run in the past and have been up in trip from their previous race, just doing that has generated a profit. Doesn't necessarily mean backing every horse today that's going to be up in trip, which there are 161 of, will result in the same. But that's why we have these filter controls in here. Now let's put a couple of other filters on. Let's say that we want to look at runners. So we've got a couple of options at the top here. Now, if I click this button, now depending on your version of Excel, you might not have this. So I've done previous videos on an older version of Excel where this wasn't available. But if we click that, we can do multiple. And because all of this is selected, it's going to deselect multiple. So if I go to clear, that's going to clear all of those selections I've made. Now to do the inverse, I select to take this off. Option. Now if I didn't have this option here, I hold the control key down on the keyboard and you can see these filters all changing in accordance with my selections. So where I'm filtering things out, it's removing racetracks and it's removing horses and it's removing selections in this panel here. So if I want to clear that filter, simply click the top there and that brings all of those back in. If I want to look at horses that have maybe raced, only had 5 previous races. I want to select 5 previous races. I can do so here, and then I can look at the profitability for those horses that meet that criteria as well. So this is how we can use the slicers and the filter controls. You have the dates at the top, and then we generally have stuff about the race itself, then about the horse, and then about specifics of it, and then more around the dynamics of its past performance. And you can filter just by horse itself. So if you want to look at aplomb, click aplomb, and you can see where it's ran, where it's met this criteria. And you can output that. So if we just scroll slightly to the right, I've gone a bit too far. It's giving you a summary table, but if you want to look in more detail, double click yellow for output, double click here, and that gives me a new sheet where aplomb has ran where it's been up in trip and it's had less than 6 previous races. Those are the conditions that we've put in on our filter control. So that's what it's showing me. And it's showing you the jockeys at 2 occasions and the trainers remain the same. So that's how the selections work. That's what filters and slices can do. There's a lot to get into, a lot to get your teeth stuck into, an awful lot of data. That's our job, bring you the data and bring you it in a means that it's easy enough to use and analyze.